Hello and welcome to the Homeless Consultant channel. My name is Paul B. I am the Homeless Consultant. And since I've dumped 2 videos on this channel today, after a hiatus of several months now, I should say hello to my subscribers. And thank you for subscribing. There's a lot of reasons for the hiatus there. My camera giving up the ghost, so I can't make videos properly. It is so difficult to do with this webcam. And I can't do any kind of special effects or stop motion or time lapse or anything. But as much as anything else, just having my heart broken again, over and over again. So I made that video for Jay Leno. I made the video for the Burnsville City Council. I have to put together as much video as I can here in the limited amount of time I have left to do anything at all. With the car dead and the job gone, I'm dead. In this video, I wanted to give you an example of what I've been saying about Minnesotans, this cult of Minnesota nice. This is just another example. And all of you who've written to me over the years and contacted me and confirmed, because you were a transplant to Minnesota, how horrifically you were treated. I'm so sorry you ever had to go through this. Here's what happened. A couple months ago, I don't know how long ago, I got it in my head, I wanted to check on something. When I did research on the books I wrote in the 1990s, I heavily relied on the Reader's Guide to Periodical Literature. Back then, before the internet, before the web anyway, the internet was there but not the web, if you were going to find articles, not academic articles, but in Time magazine or People magazine or things like this, you would use the periodical guide to readers' literature. So a lot of my research was done through that to find the articles on the topics that I was writing about and researching. And I couldn't find that reader's guide anymore. And I thought, well, what do people use today? So I got it in my head to go inside to the library to ask a librarian, what do people use to research these days? Because I don't know. Since I wrote the 3 books I did, and nobody would publish them, even though everything in them came true. Go figure. It was the hardest work I've ever done in my life, other than trying to stay alive, living in a car. And I just don't want to write another book. What's the point? But for a video on here on the topic of research, I wanted to find out what was going on there. So I went inside and I went and asked the librarian. And the librarian, just this really cute young girl, and she was very helpful. And she was very friendly and nice and bubbly, you might say. And she very helpful. I mean, she took me around, showed me all these things. It was quite an experience. I mean, the library was set up totally different than I remember it being set up. The only thing I recognized was like Writer's Market, those books and things. And she told me that, things are online now. There's a whole different system for doing this kind of research. She didn't even seem to know what the Reader's Guide to Periodical Literature was. And that was like the main research tool when I was growing up. I mean, when I was in junior high school and high school, I used that thing all the time. And then, of course, when I was writing books, I mean, my goodness. But this girl was really nice, right? And I often sit outside the library, which is also the Department of Motor Vehicles there, and I'm just sitting there on my days off work because I gotta sit somewhere, right? And I try to get shade if I can, or if not, if I'm up front I can get internet access. If I'm out back I can't. If I'm out back, I'm where the employees of the Department of Motor Vehicles and the library park. And when I'm out there, you know, they don't know this. I mean, the people at the Department of Motor Vehicles really kind of, a couple of them really look at me nasty. One of them's really creepy. Guy with long hair, just, he really seems to take, it's almost like he has this smirk on his face. He comes out to his car to huff on a vapor. I don't know what he's doing, but he's like got this smirk on his face like, you're homeless. F you. This kind of thing, which I just don't need. One time this guy actually, I'm sitting there all by myself, and he backs his car right in next to me. I mean, I could just, if this window worked, I could reach out and touch his car. Just an intimidation tactic. Typical Minnesota behavior. Passive-aggressive intimidation. And the irony is, when those people are in there working, I'm protecting their cars. I can't count how many times, I mean, it doesn't happen all the time, but over the years, I can't count how many times I've seen people out there who look suspicious, messing with cars. I've seen kids bouncing basketballs off of the employees' cars. And after I talked to this girl, actually, I don't know how long it was, 1 or 2 weeks after I talked to her, there were a couple gangbangers, and I don't mean like the Somalis over in the free housing or whatever they're getting over there with the big apartment complex. I mean, these were like Minneapolis, you know, gonna cap your ass, motherfucker, that kind of thing. I mean, just real life gangbangers, and they're standing there facing the door as the library's closing, the back door, which I don't know if they can see out it, but it looks to me like it's a big steel door. So, I mean, if these people open the door, like this girl, if she opens up the door to leave, there's these two gangbangers hanging around just looking. So I'm moving my car back and forth and looking directly at them to make sure they know they're being watched. And it turns out they turned around and finally left. And it was about 2 or 3 minutes before those people came out of the library. And the kids are throwing the basketball against the car. I pulled my car up there and it makes them stop. So I'm out there protecting these people's cars. And they look at me like I'm a piece of human garbage because I'm homeless. So here's the thing. When I got done and this girl gave me some information written down and I was done with that, I thought, you know, well, maybe as a courtesy it might be nice to just let her know who that guy is sitting in that car all the time. So I wrote down, you know, how to find my YouTube channel. And I handed it to her and I said, I'm the guy. And up until now she'd been bubbly, friendly, happy. And here's another thing. I actually realized when I was talking to her, because she was wearing a mask, and nobody wears a mask anymore, and they never should have, but whole nother story. But I had almost literally run into this girl leaving a store across the street. I don't know, a month earlier or something. And I remember because she had that same bubbly, you know, just, no, I'm sorry. And she was really nice, really sweet. I liked her. I mean, she was really cute. And too young for me. She's probably my granddaughter's age, but I mean, she was really cute. She was a nice girl. And I remembered as I was talking to her, that was that girl at the store I almost mowed down when I left the store. And so, you know, as a courtesy, I give her my YouTube channel, and I hand it to her. And I said, I'm the guy in that blue car all the time, by the way. You know, I'm as harmless as they come. If you want to know what I'm about, here. And I handed her that. Now from that time on, I talked to her one other time because I was trying to get the printer working. I'll tell you why in a moment. I was trying to get the printer in there, I don't know, a week later or something. And no, I think it was less than a week. And she was really like nervous this time around me, just really uncomfortable. And I'm thinking, what changed? That I'm homeless? Why did I become a different person? What happened? Now I'll just go ahead and tell you now. You remember, one of the other reasons I've been on hiatus with the Homeless Consultant channel is because I've been putting tremendous effort into learning digital art and animation. And I told you about this back, you know, in the last videos I made. Something that I had started doing right before I became homeless. I bought the software and I never got to use it 7 years ago. And I've been putting everything I have into learning this, and I've gotten really good at it, like I told you I would. I told you I would have been a guru who's teaching this stuff by now if I hadn't lost my home. And here it is. I've been at it for about 9 months, and I'm getting pretty darn good at it. I gotta say, because I'm not a good artist. And one of the things I really want to do, and one of the things that breaks my heart with this car dying and me having to just tie up my affairs because I'm not going to make it, is that I was trying to work on a tribute to a particular Holocaust victim. As if the Holocaust isn't bad enough. And I've talked many times on this channel about the homeless Holocaust in the United States, because there are so many similarities. Yeah, there's no gas chambers. Yeah, there's not a prison. But the Holocaust was so much more than that. It was an attitude. It was the difference between the way that librarian treated me when I was asking her questions as a patron and the way she treated me just like that when she found out I was homeless. That's how Jews were treated in Germany. And that's why they could be put in those concentration camps, because nobody stood up for them. Everyone just suddenly looked at them as less than human. You deserve what you're getting. Go to the oven and shut up. Go to the gas chamber. With this digital art, it is so important to me to make this tribute to this particular Holocaust victim. She was a 14-year-old girl. One of the few who had a portrait taken of her when she's in the concentration camp. And she looks like she is absolutely terrified. As she should. Because her mother had recently died, and she would be dead very soon as well. And she had just taken a beating from one of the guards. Because she committed the horrible crime of not understanding the German language when she's Polish. It is so important to me to make this tribute to this girl, because she represents everything that the Holocaust was. And the Holocaust represents everything that the way the homeless are treated in America is, from my perspective. So I was working hard. The problem is you only have that one photograph of her. And I've been doing a lot of practicing of what people are like when I don't have a reference photo. I don't have a model. Because I want to present this girl when she was alive. When she was happy and free. Before the Nazis, these socialist, liberal Nazis. In case you didn't know that. Imprisoned her and killed her for the crime of not being an Aryan. So, different people I've been seeing, I'm taking my memory and I'm trying to create digital art of that individual by memory. And I was getting good at it because it forces me to notice things about them. So by the time I got around to that, when I talked to this librarian, among other things, I noticed a bunch of features about her. What clothes she was wearing, what her hair looked like. I couldn't see it through this huge mask, but I wondered in my mind, what does she look like behind that mask? Just like I wonder, what does this Holocaust victim look like when she didn't have her hair shaved off? So I spent some time making a digital art of this librarian. I mean, heck, I'll just show you. I'll just show you what I came up with. Okay? Now, I don't know if this is good or not, but I wanted to show it to her. I mean, I show the other ones I've done to everyone else, so I wanted to show it to her and just, to me, that's a way of honoring her. I felt that she was significant enough for me to do something like that. This is helping me prepare for this really important project, for this tribute to the Holocaust victim. This is Lava Quokka. And that's why I went in to look for the printer, because I was going to print this out and give it to her. Say, put it on your refrigerator or something, whatever. But you made an impact on me, and I made this of you. Now, in the normal world outside of Minnesota, where I've lived my whole life, all these different states I've lived in, and so many more that I've traveled to, that would be cool. That would be considered, it's like, wow, that's kind of neat. Now, if I'm parked outside her house or her apartment or her condo with binoculars and a camera, that's kind of creepy. But just doing something like this as just one of many models I'm going through, it's just kind of cool. That's it. Here you go. Put it on your refrigerator. Over and done with. But I couldn't get the thing printed out, and I was there too late. And she was acting really weird because now she knew I was homeless. And I tried a couple times because I wanted to give her this thing. It was just important to me, Now here's the thing. I talked to her about this Reader's Guide to Periodical Literature, and she taught me a lot of things about what they have now for research. Things that are new to me. I talked to her a bit about what I've done in the past, writing books and things like that. We had this interaction, and it wasn't really short. I don't know, 7 minutes maybe. I mean, she was very helpful. She went to a lot of things. She didn't try to blow off the questions or anything. She was very helpful. In the normal world outside of Minnesota, the place I've been in my entire existence, when you interact with a stranger to just even that level, even though it isn't much, when you interact with that person, they immediately rise to a position of importance that is above the masses. They're not up next to your family. They're not up next to your friends. They're not up next to the people you've gone to church with for years. But you're elevated above the masses. The person becomes important to you because you have made some kind of connection with them. Even if it's just chatting with someone, a clerk at a grocery store. If you sit there and you chat with them for even 30 seconds or a minute, and it's anything of substance other than, boy, it sure is hot out today, that person becomes more important in your life than they were 60 seconds earlier. It's just normal human tribalism. That's how humans are supposed to function socially. And when I gave her my website or YouTube channel to show her who I am, and I've got 250 videos showing me when I still had, somewhat darker hair, looking a lot younger, my body had not been destroyed being in this car, all those years of watching me be destroyed, all those videos I made on all these topics, music videos, everything under the sun. If she looked at it at all, you would think, okay, she now knows more about me than she did before by a long shot. It seems in the normal world outside of Minnesota, when I'm sitting out in the car after that and she's leaving at night or going to lunch or whatever, if she's driving by, you would normally wave and smile at the person, wouldn't you? Because you know them, because you've met them, you've interacted with them. But instead, it's just, I'm not going to look at you. I'm not going to talk to you. I'm not going to acknowledge your existence. Folks, that isn't normal. That's not how a social species works. A social species is built on every time you have an interaction with someone, they become more important to you. They become more relevant. They're elevated above the masses. If this car was on fire and she had never met me, she might sit there and watch the car burn and feel so bad for the person inside. She might even call 911. But after meeting me, if the car's on fire, there should be something in your heart that says, I know this guy. Oh my gosh, there should be something that is elevated above just nobody. But that's not how Minnesotans are. And that's not how she was. She treats me worse now than she did before she knew I was homeless, before she talked to me, before she got to know me a bit. And this is what Minnesotans have done all along. It isn't normal. This is what I've been saying all along. This is what I'm talking about when I say that Minnesota functions like a cult. You're either one of them or you're an outsider. And just like any cult, like Scientology or whatever, outsiders are to be feared, ridiculed, exploited, robbed, and destroyed if necessary. This girl broke my heart. I was hoping to get a friendly wave and a smile once in a while, instead of getting this creepy guy with the long hair who comes out and tries to intimidate me all the time. while I'm protecting his car. They don't know that there's a kid who keeps climbing into the bushes out there. There's a big bush thing right in the middle where you drop off books. And this kid keeps going and dropping off packages in there. And then someone else comes and grabs a package. Probably a drug transaction. These people don't even know that's going on. I do, because I see it. In fact, the kid's just staring at me the whole time. So I had to pretend to look away as I watched him. They don't know that. They don't know they got kids bouncing basketballs off their car. And then I'm the one stopping them. They don't know. They don't care. They don't thank me. And I don't ask them to. I'm just doing what comes naturally to me. That girl became more important to me after bumping into her coming out of the store and talking to her at the library. If somebody was threatening her existence, it would be important to me. My heart would, something would happen inside me, and I'd say, I know this girl. I've got to help her. And to be honest, even with this guy from the DMV who treats me so rotten with a little smirk on his face, backs his car in trying to intimidate me and all this stuff, the fact that I've seen the guy so many times elevates him a little bit above the masses. Such that even though I don't like this guy because of the way he's so snotty with me, so smarmy and smirky with me, if this guy was under threat, I would feel more of a compulsion to help him than I would somebody I've never met before. That's how a social species works. But not with Minnesotans. And this has been my problem for 15 years in Minnesota. No matter what you do with these people, you can't enter their clique. You can't become a part of their cult. Not that I want to. I don't want to be a part of a cult. But they can tell you're an outsider because you don't behave the way that cult does. And once they've identified you by your behavior that you're an outsider, you're shut off. And when they leave, they're not going to smile and wave. They're going to look the other way. They're just going to look straight ahead. If you go in to ask them a question, they're going to act nervous and the total opposite of what a socially competent species does. And this girl broke my heart because it is just an archetypical example of what I have dealt with for 15 years in Minnesota. People I worked with for 7 years, 7 years at the medical company, even they can't seem to elevate me to a level above other people. A little bit. I'll grant them that. A little bit. And those of you watching this channel who were transplants to Minnesota and you actually got out alive, all the people who've contacted me and told me how absolutely positively right I am, and everything I say about Minnesotans and Minnesota nice, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. There's something wrong with these people. They aren't normal. And these are the people I have to rely on to save my life. Do you understand now why I'm in such a dire situation? Heck, I would expect somebody who I talk to as much as I talk to her, maybe, I don't know, but maybe even on lunch to walk over to my car and just say, hi, how you doing? You know, I checked out your YouTube channel. It was pretty impressive. You made all that while you're living in a car? Start a conversation. I didn't really expect that, but I mean, let's face it, in a normal state, that's probably what would have happened. I would probably get more than a smile and a wave. It's what you do when you know somebody, when you've met somebody. But Minnesotans don't do that. They just shut you off. Oh, you're homeless. You make me uncomfortable. I don't care about how uncomfortable you are as you're looking at your mortality every single day sitting in that car. You're sitting in that car for 8 hours while I'm working, sweating, 100 degrees, no airflow, no air conditioning, nothing. You got to prop the door open with your knee, but I see the door open, so I'm scared that you're going to jump me. Because I don't think and I don't bother to learn why you might have your door propped open. This is how Minnesotans behave. And I'm just sick of having my heart broken like that by everyone I meet. So that's another reason why I stopped making videos for a while. What's the point? How do I get across? If you haven't been to Minnesota, I can explain this in a myriad ways, but you're never going to understand how bad it really is. You're never going to get it because these people are so different from normal people. You're never going to get it. So why should I make the videos? What's the point? I can try to warn you that if you come to Minnesota or you do business with Minnesotans, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get the smile and the handshake and the, oh, hi there, with the knife behind their back. But until you experience it for yourself, you're not going to know what I'm talking about. Those of you who got the Minnesota treatment, go ahead and leave some comments. Tell your experiences so other people will know. There was a chance for me when I have my 2 days off work and I'm stuck sitting in a place like that so often. There was a chance for me to have somebody who might acknowledge my existence in a positive way, instead of all these people who, like the Somalis who take selfies of me, and they come out in front of my car and they just stare at me and laugh their heads off because the American is being abandoned by his fellow citizens while they're getting free everything. And they think it's hilarious. I have to deal with that all the time at that library. But she couldn't even do that much. And I put all that effort into making that digital art of her, or what my memory was of her. And as it turns out, when I saw her again, it was pretty good. I still don't know what she looks like without a mask, but I suspect the version I made without a mask might look like her. I don't know. I've never seen her without a mask, close enough to where I can see. But folks, that's the kind of thing we've dealt with. From the day I moved to Minnesota, I remember I crossed the border. The first thing I learned about Minnesota when I crossed the border, it was during the winter, was that the rest areas were closed. So if I had to relieve myself, I couldn't because the rest areas were closed. That was my welcome wagon to Minnesota. And it should have been a big red flag. Something is more important to Minnesotans than having their bathrooms open on the highway. The second experience I had was when I got to St. Paul and I was totally lost, and I went and asked directions in a gas station. And the person didn't want to help me in any way, shape, or form, and they treated me like I was nothing but a burden for even asking them. Even though from California to Arizona to New Mexico to Texas to Oklahoma to Kansas to Iowa, everywhere I stopped in there, everybody was nice and friendly and happy to help when I had questions. And as soon as I crossed the border into Minnesota, zip it. Those were my first two experiences when I moved to Minnesota. And I knew then that something was wrong. And then when I went and finally found my friend's place, who they had moved there from out of state, and as we got chatting almost immediately, they said, "You've got to watch out for this passive-aggressive thing." And I said, "What does that mean exactly?" And they're like, "Well, you'll know it when you see it, believe me." I was like, "Well, what does that mean?" And they never told me what it meant. They hadn't been there that long, but they already understood it. And they had warned me about it. And then, because I had to find an apartment, the apartment I ended up losing so many years later, and I had to find a job, I went to a coffee shop nearby to get on the internet to look for a job. And the people in there were just mean, nasty. You couldn't start a conversation with them. You couldn't tell a joke and get them to smile. You couldn't get them to look you in the eye. You couldn't get them to acknowledge your existence. Those were my first 3 experiences with Minnesota. And it's just been down the toilet since then. So what am I supposed to do? Keep making videos? I mean, I can't now because everything's dead. And I will be too. But what was I supposed to do the last few months? Keep making videos trying to tell you what these Minnesotans are like? You're not going to get it until you've been through it yourself. You don't know what war is like until you've been in war. I would not know what war was like if I hadn't lived in that apartment building, which was like being in the middle of a war zone. With the explosions and the shaking of my apartment. The violence I experienced there. You don't know what it's like to be in a Holocaust unless you've been there. And if I hadn't been homeless and experienced the American homeless Holocaust, I would have no business claiming to understand anything about what people like Slava Quokka went through. This little 14-year-old girl who was beaten by a Nazi. A 14-year-old girl. Because she didn't understand German when she wasn't German. Right after her mother had died, the photograph of her is just one of absolute terror. And within a few months, she was dead. But if you've lived in Minnesota, you can empathize with that too much. And it shouldn't be that way, folks. Enter the state of Minnesota at your own risk. Do business with Minnesotans at your own risk. You have been warned. Are you going to listen to the warning or not? Nobody warned me until I got here. So there you go, folks. That's one of the reasons I haven't made videos in so long. It's one of the reasons my heart's broken again. And I'm just sick of this over and over and over and over for 15 years. Every person I meet in this state treats me like this girl did. As soon as they don't have to figure out that you're homeless, what about all the years I wasn't homeless? You talk to them long enough for them to figure out, because when you're in a cult, you can immediately identify somebody who is not in your cult. That's part of the problem with cults. These Minnesotans immediately identified that I was an outsider, that I was a transplant. Just as surely as when I'm standing in a line somewhere, I could identify somebody who was a transplant. Because they talked to me, normally. They smiled, they looked at me. It wasn't fake. It was real. That's why transplants in Minnesota can identify each other so easily. Because Minnesotans don't do that with you. Go watch my video series, True Crime, The Minnesota Nice Murder, which is about how these Minnesotans killed me. Took my life. Because, folks, it's gotten real. And it was real when I made that video series. But now, the body count is about to rise. Save yourselves. Do not ever enter the state of Minnesota. Don't do it. Don't do it. You will regret it. Unless you are the type of passive-aggressive psychopath like these people, you will get along fine with them if you're like that. But if you're even remotely normal, don't enter Minnesota. You are not going to make it. It will haunt you for the rest of your life. Just as surely as those people who were in the Holocaust who actually survived were haunted for the rest of their lives. Just as surely as these Vietnam veterans are haunted by what they saw and experienced for the rest of their lives. Don't do it to yourself. I'm telling you right now, if this is the last thing I'm able to tell you, save yourselves, stay away from Minnesota, and not just Minnesota. And I've never really said that it's just Minnesota, like this diagram. I've said all along, this is a cultural problem. It overflows into western Wisconsin, it overflows into northern Iowa. I have met people from northern Iowa who are just as bad as Minnesotans. They're identical. Western Wisconsin. And western Wisconsin's where you've got all these freak shows. That guy who kidnapped the girl, killed her family, killed her mother and father, and kidnapped her and turned her into a slave. She escaped like 4 months later. That was western Wisconsin. That's the Minnesota mindset. That's not Wisconsin. That's how Minnesotans behave. In fact, if you look at the loony birds in Wisconsin, other than the guy that Psycho was based on, he was at Gain. He was over in the eastern part, Wisconsin proper. But if you look at all these loony birds they've had, these serial killers and weirdos, they're all close to Minnesota. You just had this Wisconsin state senator, Democrat, Senate minority leader. She has eye surgery, and the next day she goes out for a nice drive after eye surgery while she's on the phone, and she kills some young woman, beautiful young woman, and her little, 5-year-old daughter. That's the same hypocrisy I've been dealing with in St. Paul with these legislators in Minnesota. The exact same thing. Fargo. I don't know absolutely about Fargo because northern Minnesota seems to be, I don't want to say a bit more normal, but a bit less like the Minnesota nice problem. Western Minnesota, from what I've only met a few people from there, they seem normal. Those would be people who are nearer to South Dakota. They seem relatively unaffected by this Minnesota nice cult, this psychopathology. But in the Twin Cities area and around it, when you get into the western part of Wisconsin, the northern part of Iowa, folks, save yourselves. Don't go there. Don't do it. I don't want to make light of this, but remember Monty Python and the Holy Grail? When that guy says, "Look at the bones! Look at the bones! Oh, it's a cute little bunny rabbit. That can't hurt us. Look at the bones!" Folks, look at the bones of this channel. It's up to you. It's up to you. If you want to be tormented by your own post-traumatic stress disorder for the rest of your life, take a vacation to Minnesota. Have at it. I've done all I can to warn people. Nobody listens. That's all I got for today. I just wanted to give you this other example because what happened with this girl with this library, the reason it broke my heart so much is because it was Lucy and the football all over again. It was the same thing I've experienced for 15 years since the moment I set foot in Minnesota. Over and over and over again. Charles Schulz, the guy who made that incredibly depressing comic, Peanuts, Charlie Brown, he grew up in Minneapolis. That incredibly depressing thing where all the kids treat each other really crappy, that's based on him growing up in Minneapolis. That's Minnesota nice. He moved away from Minnesota and didn't come back. Maybe there's a reason for that. Remember Lucy with the football with Charlie Brown? Charlie Brown, I'll hold the football and you come and kick it. No, Lucy, every time you do that, you pull the football away and I fall on my back. Oh, but Charlie Brown, I promise this time for sure. This time I'll hold the ball. And every time Charlie Brown falls for it. Charles Schulz was teaching you what Minnesota nice was all along. And this girl at the library is just another instance of Lucy holding the football. I gave this girl a chance. I never should have done it. I never should have given her a chance. If she was a transplant, if she wasn't from Minnesota, it would be a completely different story. Who knows what her scene is? Maybe she's not from Minnesota, but like I said, if you are of these sociopath, psychopath tendencies, you will get along just fine in Minnesota. I regret to say it. I really regret to say it. My friend who invited me to come here when I left California, the ones who had moved here themselves, he is like that. He's basically a psychopath. And what do you know? He's gotten along just fine in Minnesota. Although even he says I haven't talked to him in years, but even he said he had to watch his back. Passive aggressive. But he gets along just fine with them because he plays the same games they do. So maybe that's this girl's scene. I don't know. All I know is for 15 years, everyone I've met, repetition of the same. How many times can it happen before you finally figure out this is what Minnesota is? It's just what this state is. And no other state is this. Do you remember when I started this job 6 years ago? Almost immediately, I barely started there, and I had to travel to Massachusetts for work. First time I had left Minnesota in 8 years. The only time to date, I got to leave Minnesota one other time for my other job at medical. When I was there, it was like walking into heaven. The people I talked to were normal. They interacted with you in a normal way. It was... They almost had to drag me kicking and screaming back. And these are East Coasters. You know how abrasive East Coast people are, but they're real. They don't pretend to be something they're not. If they're in your face and they're aggressive, that's what they are. But they're good people. They're not backstabbers. They tell you who they really are. But this girl who I ran into at the store, and she's got the old giggly, oh, yeah, I'm so sorry, that kind of thing, and the really friendly thing when I'm helping her, the real truth comes out as to what she is when she finds out I'm homeless. Then all of a sudden it's not coming over here and saying, wow, I saw your channel, wow, is you okay? Is there anything you need? Are you doing all right? A little human interaction, which is probably the best thing a homeless person could ever get, is just somebody who cares enough to sit down and have a chat with them. Good luck getting that in Minnesota. Unless it's that time of year for social service funding. Avoid Minnesota at all costs, folks. Look at the bones. Look at the bones. These people are crazy. That's all I got for you. Thanks for watching, and I'm going to have to dump as many videos as I can in the brief time I have left. But this car can barely move, and when it moves, it's like this. It's super loud. It is dangerous. I don't want to drive this car even a block away. It is... You can tell my computer's doing great. Anyway, like I said, thanks for watching.